the screaming stopped. That was what made every guard in the hallway freeze, not the sound of a baby crying in Kang Jae-min's mansion, though that was forbidden enough. It was the sudden, impossible silence that followed the moment Seoul's most feared man took the child from her mother's trembling arms. Amara couldn't breathe, couldn't move, could only watch as her daughter, her Lena, who cried with doctors and strangers and anyone who wasn't Amara, reached up with chubby fingers and touched the scar that carved through Kang Jae-min's face like a monument to violence. The baby didn't flinch, didn't cry, just stared at him like she'd been waiting her whole short life to find him. Around them, the opulent hallway seemed to hold its breath. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across marble floors. Men in black suits stood like statues, witnessing something that shouldn't exist. Kang Jae-min's jaw tightened. His dark eyes flickered with something that looked dangerously close to shock. "She never does that," Amara whispered, her voice cracking. "She doesn't trust anyone." 20 minutes earlier, Amara had been pacing that same hallway, panic rising in her throat with every one of Lena's screams. "Please," she'd whispered against her daughter's curls, bouncing her, rocking her, trying every trick she knew. "Please, baby, Mama's right here." But Lena only screamed louder. Amara felt eyes on her from every direction. A maid ducked into a side room. 2 guards near the east entrance exchanged glances. Everyone knew the rules in this house. Silence, efficiency, invisibility. She'd broken all 3. Her nanny had canceled an hour before her shift. Rent was due in 3 days. She had exactly 2 diapers left. Bringing Lena had been a calculated risk, the kind desperate single mother's maid when every other option had been exhausted. The sound of footsteps made her blood run cold. Slow, measured, heavy with authority. The guards stiffened. One lifted a hand slightly, a futile gesture for silence when Lena's cries were already bouncing off crystal and gold. When Kang Jae-min appeared at the end of the hall, the world seemed to narrow around him. He was taller than she'd expected, impossibly composed in a black suit tailored so precisely it looked like armor. His face was striking, but it was the scar that held attention. A jagged line cutting across his left cheek. Not hidden, deliberate, like a reminder carved in flesh. His dark eyes moved from the guards to Amara, to the baby in her arms. Amara's throat closed. She could only stand there, holding Lena tight, waiting for consequences she couldn't afford. Then Kang Jae-min did something that made her knees weak. He held out his hand. "Give her to me." "No," Amara breathed before she could stop herself. The air shifted, dangerous. His gaze sharpened, not with anger, but with curiosity. "She's disturbing the house. I will make it stop." Amara's hands shook as she stepped forward. The guards didn't move. No one did. When she placed Lena in his arms, the baby's screams cut off instantly. Lena's breathing evened, her glossy eyes fixed on his face. Then she reached up and pressed her palm against the brutal scar on his cheek. The hallway went silent. Kang Jae-min froze. His body went rigid, his jaw clenched. He stared at Lena like she'd spoken a language he'd forgotten he knew. "She never does that," Amara whispered. "She doesn't like strangers. She cries with everyone." He didn't answer, just stood there, holding her daughter with unexpected carefulness. Lena babbled softly, her fingers exploring the scar. "She trusts you," Amara said. When Kang Jae-min finally looked at her, really looked at her, not through her, but at her, Amara knew her life as an invisible black maid had just ended. "What is your name?" he asked quietly. "Amara." "And hers?" "Lena." The silence after Lena calmed became oppressive. "Welcome back to Stories by Moonlight. Before we go on, please tell us, Where are you watching from and what time is it? This helps us know how far this story travels tonight. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and share. Now let's see what happens to Amara and her baby in this dangerous man's arms. Amara stood frozen, watching Kang Jae-min hold her daughter like he'd done it 1,000 times before. Around them, the household staff remained motionless, their shock palpable in the air. This wasn't how things worked in his world. Maids got fired for mistakes. They didn't get whatever this was. Kang Jae-min's expression remained unreadable, but Amara could see the conflict playing beneath the surface. Something in his eyes. Something in the way his jaw kept tightening and releasing. Lena cooed, patting his scarred cheek with her small hand. He let her. Your nanny canceled? His voice was quiet, but carried absolute authority. Amara swallowed hard. Honesty seemed like the only option left. Yes, an hour before my shift. I had no one else. Rent is due and I couldn't. She stopped herself, realizing she was making excuses to a man who probably didn't care about the struggles of single mothers in cramped studio apartments. But he was still looking at her, still listening. I'm sorry, she finished. I knew the rules. I broke them. Yes. He paused, his gaze dropping back to Lena, who was now playing with his tie. You did. This was it, the punishment, the end. Then he turned to the head of staff standing rigid nearby. Mrs. Kwan. Sir? She will not be punished. The hallway seemed to tilt. She will be promoted. Amara's breath caught. What? Kang Jae-min's eyes returned to her, and for the first time, she saw him really look at her. Not as staff, not as an interruption, as a person. You are observant, he said. You didn't lie. You didn't beg. And my house is quieter with you here. Lena babbled happily, completely at ease in his arms. You will work directly under me, he continued, each word deliberate. Personal assistant. You and the child will be housed in the East Wing. Childcare will be provided. The words didn't make sense. None of this made sense. Mrs. Kwan's face had gone carefully blank, but Amara could see the shock there. The East Wing wasn't for staff. It was for people who mattered. I don't understand, Amara whispered. You don't need to. His tone was final. Refuse, and you may leave now, with compensation. The choice should have been obvious. Take the money, run, get as far from this dangerous man as possible. But as she looked at Lena, calm and happy, reaching for his face like she'd found something precious, Amara realized the choice had already been made. I accept. Something flickered in his eyes. Satisfaction? Maybe? Or relief? He handed Lena back carefully, his hands lingering a moment longer than necessary. The baby immediately started fussing, reaching back toward him. Tomorrow, he said. Mrs. Kwan will arrange everything. Then he turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. The guards fell into formation behind him. And just like that, he was gone. Mrs. Kwan approached, her expression tight. Follow me. They moved through corridors Amara had only ever cleaned. Past rooms she'd never entered properly. Everything was opulent. Gold fixtures, silk wallpaper, art worth more than she'd earn in a lifetime. The elevator they took wasn't the service elevator. It was the one for people who belonged. From now on, you'll use this, Mrs. Kwan said. Your quarters are on the 3rd floor. East Wing. The doors opened onto a hallway Amara had never seen. Thick cream carpet, original paintings, natural light streaming through tall windows. Mrs. Kwan stopped at a door near the end and produced a key. These are yours. She pushed the door open. It wasn't a room. It was a suite. Sitting area, bedroom, and, impossible, a second smaller bedroom with a crib already set up, toys arranged on shelves. How? Amara couldn't finish. Mr. Kang gives orders. We make them happen. Mrs. Kwan's voice was cold. A word of advice. In this house, loyalty is everything. Discretion is survival. Be careful. Then she was gone. Amara stood in the middle of luxury she didn't deserve, holding Lena, and realized with terrifying clarity she'd just trapped herself inside a lion's den. 3 days into her new role, Amara still felt like an imposter. She stood outside Kang Jae-min's private study at 7:55 a.m., smoothing down the tailored blazer that fit too perfectly, checking her reflection in the polished wood of the door. Behind her, down the hall in her quarters, Lena was with Ji-yeon, the young woman who'd been assigned as her primary caregiver. Amara had watched through the crack in the door that morning as Lena laughed and played, completely comfortable with a stranger. It should have relieved her. Instead, it made her uneasy. Lena trusted too easily. Or maybe she just knew something Amara didn't. At exactly 8 a.m., the door opened from the inside. Kang Jae-min stood there, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing her in with a slight movement of his head. His voice was cold, clipped. I don't care about excuses. Fix it or find someone who can. He ended the call without waiting for a response. The study was smaller than she'd expected. Dark wood panels, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a desk that looked like it weighed more than a car. But it was the window behind the desk that caught her attention. Floor-to-ceiling glass, offering a view of Seoul that made the city look like a kingdom waiting to be claimed. Sit. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Amara sat, her spine straight, hands folded in her lap. Your schedule. He slid a tablet across the desk. Memorize it. My meetings, my appointments, my preferences. You'll coordinate with department heads, screen calls, and manage my calendar. Questions? No? His dark eyes studied her. You're calm. Should I be panicking? Most people do. In my presence. There was no arrogance in his tone, just fact. I have a baby who screams at 3 a.m., Amara said quietly. Fear is relative. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold mask he wore like armor. For the next hour, he walked her through expectations, protocols, the invisible rules that governed his world. Amara absorbed it all, taking mental notes, asking questions only when necessary. She'd learned quickly in her life, adaptability was survival. She was good at surviving. Around 9:30, a soft knock interrupted them. Come, Kang Jae-min said. Ji-yeon appeared in the doorway, Lena balanced on her hip. I'm sorry to disturb, sir. She was asking for her mother. Mama! Lena's face lit up when she saw Amara. Before Amara could stand, Kang Jae-min was already moving around the desk. He took Lena from Ji-yeon with the same careful precision he'd shown in the hallway 3 days ago. Thank you, Ji-yeon, he said. That will be all. The young woman bowed and disappeared. And then it was just the three of them. Lena settled immediately into his arms, her small hands reaching for his face. She touched the scar, that brutal line that marked him, with the gentle curiosity of someone who saw beauty where others saw violence. Hi, she babbled. Hi, hi, hi. Kang Jae-min's expression softened in a way that made Amara's chest tighten. It wasn't dramatic, just a slight easing around his eyes, a loosening of his jaw. But on a man who existed in permanent control, even small shifts felt seismic. Hello, Lena, he said quietly. He carried her to the window, pointing at the city below. Lena pressed her face against the glass, leaving small handprints, chattering in her toddler language. Amara stood slowly, uncertain whether she should interrupt, whether this moment belonged to them, or if she was intruding. She looks at you differently, Amara said softly. He didn't turn around. What do you mean? Like you're safe. Like she knows something about you that the rest of the world doesn't. His shoulders tensed. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. My sister used to look at me like that. Amara's breath caught. Used to? She died when she was 7. His voice was flat, emotionless, but his hand tightened slightly on Lena's back. I was supposed to protect her. I was too late. The words hung in the air like ghosts. How old were you? Amara asked. 15. God, he'd been a child himself. Lena turned in his arms, patting his cheek. Da-da-da, she babbled. Kang Jae-min's eyes closed briefly. When they opened, something raw flickered there before the mask slammed back into place. She looks at me, he said quietly, his gaze still on Lena. Like I am not what I became. The confession hit Amara like a physical blow, because she understood, suddenly, what this was. Why he'd promoted her. Why he kept coming back to see Lena. It wasn't about control or possession. It was about redemption. He handed Lena back to Amara carefully. Take her back to Jiyeon. We have work to do. But as Amara carried Lena toward the door, she glanced back. Kang Jae-min stood at the window, staring out at his kingdom, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked lonely. If you've ever watched someone slowly come back to life after years of just surviving, if you've ever wondered whether love can reach the parts of us we've buried deepest, then you need to keep reading, because what happens next will shatter everything Amara thought she knew about monsters and men. 2 weeks later, Amara had learned the rhythm of Kang Jae-min's world. She anticipated problems before they became crises, rearranged schedules when meetings ran long, protected his time with the fierce efficiency of someone who understood that in his world, minutes were currency and trust was earned in silence. She was good at her job, better than she'd expected. But she'd also learned to read the signs, the subtle tension in his shoulders during certain phone calls, the way guards doubled at the mansion's entrances after dark, the locked doors that had been opened the week before. Something was wrong. Amara? She looked up from her tablet. Kang Jae-min stood in the doorway of his study, his expression carefully neutral. Come here. She followed him inside. He closed the door, something he rarely did, and moved to the window. There's a situation, he said. Rival territory dispute. It's being handled, but I need you and Lena to stay close to the East Wing for the next few days. How close? Don't leave it. Her stomach dropped. Is it dangerous? It's being managed. His tone was final, but she could see the tension in his jaw. Managed how? He turned to face her, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. Amara, this is not a world where I explain myself. Trust that I will keep you safe. You're asking me to trust you with my daughter's life. Yes. The word hung between them, heavy with implications. Amara thought about the last 2 weeks. The way he came to see Lena every evening, sitting on the floor of her nursery while she played. The way he spoke to her in Korean, teaching her words. The way he'd smiled, actually smiled, when she'd taken her first unsteady steps straight toward him. Okay, Amara said. But if something happens, nothing will happen. His voice carried absolute certainty. I promise you that. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. She stood at the window of her quarters, Lena asleep in the next room, and watched the grounds below. More guards than usual. Vehicles she didn't recognize parked near the gates. A soft knock made her jump. She opened the door to find Kang Jae-min standing there, still in his suit despite the late hour. Is everything okay? She asked. I wanted to check on Lena. Amara stepped aside, letting him enter. He moved quietly to the nursery doorway, watching Lena sleep. The moonlight caught his profile, the scar silver in the darkness. "She's walking now," he said softly. "Because of you. She wanted to reach you." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "When I was 15, I made a choice. I chose power over innocence, survival over morality. I've lived with that choice every day since." Amara moved to stand beside him. "And now? Now I have something I didn't have then." He looked at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes was almost painful to witness. "A chance to be better. For her." "You care about her." "Yes." The admission seemed to cost him something. "More than I should." Before Amara could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, his expression hardening as he read the message. "They're moving tonight," he said, "earlier than expected." "What does that mean?" He handed her a phone. Small, black, unmarked. "This only calls one number. Mine. If anything happens, if anyone tries to enter this wing, you call me immediately. Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone except me." Fear spiked through her chest. "Jae-min, I won't let anything happen to you." His voice was steel wrapped in certainty. "Either of you, I promise." Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him. Amara stood there, holding the phone, and understood with terrifying clarity that she and Lena were no longer background figures in his world. They were something far more dangerous. They were what he would protect, what he would fight for, what he might die for. If your heart is racing right now, if you're terrified of what comes next but can't look away, then brace yourself. Because the violence that's been lurking at the edges is about to crash through the doors, and no one, not Amara, not Lena, not even Kang Jae-min, will come out the same. The sound of shattering glass woke Amara from a restless sleep. For a moment, she lay frozen, her brain struggling to process what she'd heard. Then the alarm system screamed to life, a piercing wail that made her heart slam against her ribs. Lena. Amara was out of bed and running before conscious thought caught up. She burst into the nursery to find Lena sitting up in her crib, eyes wide, bottom lip trembling. "Mama?" Her voice was small, frightened. "I've got you, baby. I've got you." Amara scooped her up, pressing Lena's face against her shoulder. The phone Kang Jae-min had given her was already in her hand, her fingers shaking as she dialed the only number programmed into it. He answered on the first ring. "Amara." His voice was sharp, urgent. "Where are you?" "The nursery. I heard glass breaking." "Lock the door, now. Don't open it for anyone except me." "What's happening?" "They breached the south entrance." In the background, she could hear shouting, the sharp crack of something that might have been gunfire. "Stay where you are. I'm coming." The line went dead. Amara's hands trembled as she locked the nursery door, then dragged the small dresser in front of it. It wouldn't stop anyone determined, but it might buy seconds. Seconds could mean everything. Lena was crying now, her small body shaking. Amara sank into the corner farthest from the door, wrapping herself around her daughter like a shield. "Shh, baby, Mama's here. We're okay. We're okay." But they weren't okay. The sounds filtering through the door told her that. Raised voices, running footsteps, and then, unmistakably, gunshots. Close, too close. Lena screamed. Amara pressed her hand gently over Lena's mouth, tears streaming down her own face. "Quiet, baby, please be quiet." The doorknob rattled. Amara's blood turned to ice. "Amara!" A voice called from the other side. Not Kang Jae-min. Someone else. "Open the door. We're not going to hurt you." Like hell they weren't. She didn't answer. Didn't move. Just held Lena tighter and prayed harder than she'd ever prayed in her life. The rattling stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then the door exploded inward. Not kicked open, blown open. Splintered wood flew across the room. The dresser toppled sideways, and two men in dark clothes stepped through the wreckage, guns drawn. "There she is," one of them said, his Korean accented with something Amara couldn't place. "Grab her." Amara scrambled backward, putting her body between the men and Lena. "Don't touch her! Don't you dare!" "Relax. We just need leverage." The man closest to her reached out, and then the hallway behind them erupted into chaos. Amara heard the shots before she saw anything. 3 quick cracks that made her ears ring. The first man dropped. The second spun around, raising his weapon. He didn't get the chance to fire. Kang Jae-min moved through the doorway like violence incarnate. His suit was torn, blood staining his white shirt. She couldn't tell if it was his or someone else's. His face was a mask of cold fury that made the scar across his cheek look like a war banner. He didn't hesitate, didn't speak, just moved with brutal efficiency that spoke of years of survival in a world where mercy was weakness. The second man went down. Then Kang Jae-min was in front of Amara, his hands on her shoulders, his eyes scanning her face with desperate intensity. "Are you hurt?" "No, we're okay. We need to move, now." He pulled her to her feet, then reached for Lena. But Lena was already reaching for him, her tear-streaked face turned toward him like he was the only safe thing in a world gone mad. "Da," she whimpered. "Da, da." Something cracked in his expression, just for a moment. Then the mask was back, and he was lifting Lena with one arm while keeping the other on Amara. "Stay behind me. Don't look at anything. Just keep moving." They ran, through hallways littered with debris, past rooms where she could hear fighting, downstairs where guards stood at attention, weapons raised, protecting their escape route. And then they were outside, in the cold Seoul night, and Kang Jae-min was pushing them into an armored vehicle. "Get in! Go!" "You're not coming?" Amara's voice cracked. "I have to finish this. Jae-min!" "I promised I would keep you safe." His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "I keep my promises." Then he stepped back. The driver started the engine. And Amara watched through the window as Kang Jae-min turned back toward the mansion, back toward the gunfire and chaos, back toward a world of violence she'd only glimpsed the edges of. Lena pressed her hand against the glass, crying. "Dada! Dada!" "I know, baby," Amara whispered, her own tears falling freely now. "I know." She didn't know if she'd ever see him again. Didn't know if the man who'd held her daughter with such tenderness could survive the monster he had to become to protect them. But as the vehicle pulled away from the mansion, she understood something with absolute certainty. She couldn't lose him. Neither of them could. If you're holding your breath right now, if your heart is breaking for what comes next, then steel yourself. Because the final chapter will either destroy you or heal you. And honestly, it might do both. 48 hours later, Amara sat in a safe house on the outskirts of Seoul, watching Lena sleep and wondering if Kang Jae-min was alive or dead. No one would tell her anything. The guards stationed outside were polite but silent. Ji-yeon had come with them, caring for Lena with the same gentle efficiency as always, but even she didn't have answers, or wouldn't give them. The not knowing was its own special torture. Amara had tried the phone he'd given her 17 times. It went straight to voicemail every time. A generic message. Nothing personal. Nothing that told her whether he was breathing or buried. On the third day, the door opened. Amara was on her feet instantly, hope and terror warring in her chest. But it wasn't Kang Jae-min. It was Mrs. Kwan, looking more tired than Amara had ever seen her. "Is he—" Amara couldn't finish the question. "Alive," Mrs. Kwan said. "In surgery. He was shot twice. Once in the shoulder, once in the side. The doctors say he'll survive. The relief nearly brought Amara to her knees. Where is he? A private facility, very secure. Mrs. Kwan's expression softened slightly. He asked for you? Both of you. The moment he woke up. Take me to him. I'm here to do exactly that. The private medical facility looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. All white marble and hushed efficiency. The guards outside Kang Jae-min's room stepped aside without question when they saw Amara. She pushed the door open slowly, Lena balanced on her hip. He was sitting up in bed, his torso wrapped in bandages, an IV line running into his arm. His face was pale, the scar across his cheek standing out in sharp relief. But he was alive. He was alive. His eyes found hers immediately. Amara. She crossed the room in 3 steps, careful not to jostle Lena. You idiot! You absolute! I know. You could have died. Yes. You promised you'd keep us safe. How are we supposed to be safe if you... Her voice broke. I'm sorry. He reached out with his good arm, and she took his hand, feeling the warmth of it, the solid reality. I had to end it. Had to make sure they couldn't come back. Did you? Yes, it's done. You're safe now, both of you. Lena, who'd been watching him with wide eyes, suddenly reached out. Da-da. The word hung in the air like a benediction. Kang Jae-min's breath hitched. His eyes went glossy with something that might have been tears. Lena? She said it during the attack. Amara said softly. When you came for us. It was her first real word. Da-da. His voice was rough. She called me? Yes. He looked at Amara, and in his eyes she saw everything he couldn't say. The fear, the relief, the desperate, terrible love of a man who'd spent 15 years believing he didn't deserve softness. Come here, he said quietly. Amara moved closer. He took Lena gently, carefully, wincing slightly at the movement, but refusing to let pain stop him. Lena settled against his chest, one small hand pressed over his heart, the other reaching up to touch his face. His scarred, beautiful face. Da, she said again, softer this time. Content. And Kang Jae-min, Seoul's most feared man, broke. Not dramatically. Not with sobs. Just tears sliding silently down his cheeks as he held Lena like she was the only thing tethering him to humanity. I was too late before, he whispered. With my sister. I couldn't save her. I've carried that for 15 years. The guilt, the rage, the certainty that I didn't deserve to be anything but what I became. Jaemin, but then Lena looked at me, in that hallway, like I was worth saving. He looked up at Amara, his eyes red but clear. Like I could still be good. Amara sat on the edge of the bed, her hand covering his. You risked everything to protect us. Because you're mine. The words were fierce, possessive, but also tender. Both of you, if you'll have me. Not as your employer, not as... He paused. As family. The words settled into Amara's chest like coming home. We're already yours, she said softly. We have been since the moment Lena touched your face and refused to be afraid. He kissed Lena's forehead, then reached out and pulled Amara closer until the 3 of them were tangled together in that hospital bed, broken and healing and whole in ways that mattered. Stay, he said. Not as an order, as a plea. Not as staff, not as an obligation, as mine, as family. Yes, Amara whispered. Yes. 6 months later, Amara stood in the mansion's garden, watching Lena toddle across the grass toward Kang Jae-min. His scars had healed, the new ones and the old ones. He was still powerful, still dangerous in the ways that men like him had to be. But when Lena reached him and he swept her up, spinning her until she shrieked with laughter, Amara saw what her daughter had seen from the beginning. Not a monster. A man who'd lost himself and found his way back through the trust of a child who'd never learned to fear him. A man worth saving. Mama! Lena called, pointing. Mama, come! And Amara crossed the garden toward her family, strange and scarred and perfect, and understood that some mistakes weren't mistakes at all. They were fate, disguised as desperation, leading her exactly where she was meant to be. If this story broke your heart and put it back together again, if you believe in second chances and redemption and the power of unconditional love, then share it. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to know that even monsters can learn to be human again. They just need someone brave enough to see them first. Don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next one.